For most people, the line between what is real and what is not real is quite clear. And with such an absolute and black and white distinction, they arm themselves against all of the supposedly immeasurable, and therefore supernatural in the world. Why are such distinctions for reality, by the mass of the population of the world, so clear and so total, even though more and more evidence seems to show that things are not as simple as we humans imagine? They are this way perhaps because humanity demands safety and ease. In order for such safety, for such stable and polarized beliefs about the nature of reality to feel utterly true, these beliefs, imposed or not, need to make total sense to the modern mind. And so, people seeking safety in this increasingly bigger world, using the societal norms of the time, point to the fact that anything that can be sensed with the five physical senses is real, and anything that cannot is not real. So if it can be touched and it can hit you, if you can clearly see it, smell it, taste it, hear it, it's real. The rational safe space of the times is essentially that simple really. The physical senses define its boundaries. This is a most rational conclusion. But there are those that argue that certain aspects of reality that are now considered to be not real, such as vividly imagined thoughts, scenes, and ideas, can, using such definitions, be real, because for those that have strong and vivid powers of visualization, such ethereal non-things can be seen, heard, tasted, smelt, and even touched in the mind's eye with such intensity and clarity that modern rational definitions become blurred. And further, they make the claim that such supposedly ethereal non-objects can heal or harm just like anything supposedly physical and real. And yet, reasonable societal norms are not easily opposed or dismantled, and the skeptical clergy of these modern times will argue that sensual data has to be data that is perceivable by the physical senses only. What they mean is that for a thing to be real, it must be seen through physical eyes that can only see within a certain range of possible frequencies, heard by physical ears that can only hear within a certain range of sounds, can be touched by a physical body that is only operative within a certain range of possible resonance fields, etc. Such a conclusion is indeed a most pragmatic one, from the rational point of view, and this pragmatic stance has many advantages in that it establishes a general consensus, that we can all agree as being a particular range of existence, that we may term the physical or objectively real world, the accepted reality of a society. But such a pragmatic range rulership, meaning such a quantified and fenced sectioning of reality, can have both its benefits and its disadvantages. Of greatest benefit is this ruled sectional range's ability to provide a stable place for the emerging human mind to grow and thrive. The seemingly, unconsciously established human physical sensual organ range provides an unthinking and therefore natural, meaning that you do not need to pay attention and guide them consciously to have them work, area of perception, where most of humanity can establish a collective, and find peace in an otherwise potentially chaotic universe. Such a partition, established in a natural manner by the very conditions of physical corporealness, provides the ever-evolving human mind with all that it may require to grow and develop in a relatively safe space. In this space the individual and collective mind of humanity can set its roots and develop a strong base that may become quite important as it can then, if this partitioning is truly a natural part of an evolving society, allow those that are ready for more to extend the range of their abilities into areas that in time might even cross the fencing off that society had imposed, and in this way, when the mind is ready, it can begin to know greater perceptions and possibilities. And I must point out that such perceptions and possibilities do make it plain, in time, that thoughts are indeed real and have real consequence, that dreams are as real as any physical thing that has ever been. But as the individual, and even the collective human mind evolves more and more, and as it realizes over and over that those heavy-handed ideas about what is and what is not real, that it had held so closely to its safety-seeking heart, are indeed just arbitrary notions that have only existed for a pretty small portion of human history, this expansion of the mind hits a wall. What happens then, when it is finally ready to admit that there is more to reality, that we all glimpse constantly, as fleeting shadows, odd and fearful sights, and even deadly encounters with what we term the supernatural, is that such expansion of our worldview, once finally faced and truly wanted and needed, is not possible. This expansion is not possible because the lords and high council of society, along with the large mass of the skeptical rational consensus, our peers, fight to repress and thwart all such fleeting and not so fleeting encounters, in the most oppressive way possible. And it is then, that those ready for the leap into a larger and far scarier world, find that they do not only face the potential dangers to be found around the corners of perception, but that they must also face the very real dangers of a supposedly modern society that imposes upon them a code of conduct and actualization, of the most rigid kind. And it is at this point that the few that have grown beyond the physical dimension, find that this new worldview is in no way natural or forgiving, but that it might actually be a kind of imprisoning of humanity. Such people then are like small waves crashing into a seemingly insurmountable shore. Some might argue that this is the way of evolution, that eventually even such small waves may change the way we all perceive our world. Perhaps, but I would not advise you to hold your breath. What is important at the moment, though, is that the very constricted ideas by the supposedly rational modern society of what is real, and therefore of what is possible, is limiting our world to such a degree, that at this rate it will be a very long time before such small waves can change the shore. And most importantly, it may be the case that we can't afford such a long wait for further enlightenment. The line between what is and what is not, was established in a supposedly unconscious manner by our organic bodies, and a supposedly dogmatic bend in human nature. A bend in nature, by the way, that most are hard-pressed to try to explain in any possible manner, using those same unconscious notions about reality that they have accepted and live their lives faithfully believing. I would argue that this inability to truly explain the self is quite distressing, and the modern notion that we humans are this way, because supposedly ape ancestors were and are this way, is both simplistic and fatal in the long term, because it posits that we may not go further as a species until we may merge with machines, which may spell a far more devastating type of fencing of the human potential. But getting back to this modern and present moment, this need to find safety in perception, and to fight any that would open a gate and counter the status quo, is costing us plenty. Many in the UFO field, for example, fight not only the lords of the established fence of perception, but they fight each other as well. Many such UFO researchers search desperately to try to find some kind of proof that will fall within the terribly small human range of accepted perception, accepted reality, so that they may finally say, here you go, people of the world, that is the final proof, this is the one thing that finally proves that aliens are real. Then when this one finally superphysical bit of proof never really does materialize, they argue with different factions in their ranks, as to whether aliens are physical things from other planets or multidimensional things that cannot be touched by physical hands. And yet abductions and encounters by certain people sound real enough. What a dilemma. They fight each other for scraps, and hit a perception wall that they may never overcome. Well, what if aliens are both, or none of the above? What if these alien visitors are not physical or non-physical, but instead beings that are no longer bound by the silly and constricting, and most unconscious notions of what is real and what is not? What if they are beings that have truly evolved and have consciously, truly consciously, explored all reality? And instead of dogmatically binding, or being bound, to one simple dimension of existence, what if instead, they have opened the gates and stepped into a world beyond sticks and stones? Such an alien race of beings can forever circle and weave around a dogmatically fenced humanity. Such a race is not ethereal, or just physically real, they are both. They can be as hard as the hardest stone, or as wispy and whimsical as a dream, a thought. They can see beyond all human possibility and laugh if they want to, if they care enough about the sticks and stones bound human trying to look up at them. Are there other planets that can hold life? Are there advanced races, that can develop a technology to travel across the cosmos? Were there ancient aliens? What a laugh really, unfortunately. Lovingly, what a laugh. Such questions demand a line in perception and possibility, that does not exist. We are being silly, I think, when we ask such simple questions, and we will continue like this until we can finally stop corralling the nature of reality, and the potential of our perception. We may also ask, who or what is Bigfoot, or the Loch Ness Monster for that matter? Where is the evidence that these creatures exist? Now only a corpse will suffice, some say, as they scream for physical proof. But what if there are, in this very planet, biological and non-biological forms of life, that have evolved to, or have always been able to, extend their potential beyond the reality gate, the physical gate, that humanity clings to so tightly right now? I am not saying that UFOs and aliens are not potentially physical at certain times, or that Bigfoot is not some hairy ancestral ape. Do not fence me, or yourself, into notions of reality that were and are transmitted upon us by more nefarious authorities than most suspect. Instead, consider the possibility that certain uncatchable things that move in the corners of our human reality are both real and not real from the limited rational worldview. I ask you, what if there are no rules when dealing with these kinds of supernatural things? No lords have yet to fence and regulate what is actual when it comes to these unclassifiable not things. It's scary and insane, if by insane you mean that which is not accepted by the mass of the skeptic and rational world, to look out there, into that beyond, without conception. Perhaps that is the big reason why few do it. Well, this is one insane joker that has seen the chaos beyond the fence, and can tell you that no answers will ever be possible in a fundamental way, until we can all open the perceptive gate, and step out into the immeasurable. If you would like to explore this subject of reality and non-reality further, and how we may conquer such a fencing of perception, I suggest the book, The Occult Experience. I will leave a link to it in the description below.